You're listening to the Building and Branding Podcast, brought to you by Virtual Vision. I'm your host, Amanda Stichter. On this show, I sit down with experts in the restoration and home services industry to hear their stories of how they built their businesses to succeed and stand out. Our conversations will uncover the challenges they've faced, the strategies they've employed, and the pivotal moments that defined their paths. We'll also dive into the critical importance of branding and marketing in this field, sharing insights on how to create a compelling brand that resonates with customers and stands out in a competitive market. Join us as we blend practical advice with inspiring real-life stories, providing you the tools and motivation to craft precision and build a lasting brand. Welcome to Building and Branding. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Building and Branding Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Stichter, and this episode is produced by Virtual Vision. I am so excited to welcome Kayla McGowan, who is the editor-in-chief of Restoration and Remediation Magazine, to our podcast today. Welcome, Kayla.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're going to have a good talk, I have no doubt. So before we dive in, Kayla, I said your title, but tell me about you. What do you do? Who are you? Maybe some fun facts about yourself too.
Okay, cool. So I've been in the industry for almost about 10 years. I actually stumbled upon this industry, which is quite common if you're not born into this industry, I would say. I actually found this industry when I was moving from Arkansas to Nevada. So fun fact, I've lived quite a few places.
Yeah.
And I started as a CSR for the IICRC, and I just kind of fell in love with the industry, and I spent about 7 years there. And then I actually took a break from our industry. I think a lot of us do that. We take a break and then we're like, no, this is not for me. I need to go back.
I gotta go back.
So I came, yeah. So I came back, and I actually came back on the social media side and the estimating side. So I didn't really jump right in back to restoration. Essentially, I kind of just, eased my way back into it and was kind of feeling it out. And then I connected with Darlene and Michael, and here I am. So, I'm excited for this. It's definitely challenging me for sure. It's making me fall in love with the industry even more, so I'm excited for this role and to see where it goes.
Absolutely. So editor-in-chief, that's a pretty amazing title. So you've got to be excited. Talk to me a little bit about what does that actually look like? What does an editor of a magazine do?
Yeah, so it is a pretty big role. And honestly, you do quite a bit. You write content, you collaborate with industry experts, you actually get to collaborate with people outside of our industry, depending on what they offer. So I know indoor air is a big thing in our industry, but they actually have their own industry, right? So I get to collaborate with experts outside of our industry and bring them into ours and see how we can work together. So that's one part of it. Social media is another part of it. Events is part of it. Making connections is part of it. And if anybody can't tell, I'm a social butterfly. So it's kind of a good role for me, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about personal life? What can you tell us about what's something you really love doing as a hobby outside of work?
I love being a mom and a wife, honestly. I'm very fortunate to hold both of those titles. They definitely, bring you back to reality. Sometimes when we work hard, and you're wrapped up, but when you come back to spend that time with your family, it's like a refreshing, oh, my family, those are the two titles I really, really, truly love. And I just finished school. I grabbed my master's last week.
Yes, congratulations. What a huge, huge thing.
Thank you so much. I don't want to age myself here, but I definitely took 11 to 12 years off after I received my AA.
Sure.
And man, has school changed so much since that time. I actually grabbed my bachelor's last year, and I was like, I'm done, and school was like, you only have like 18 months or 12 months and you can grab your master's. And I was like, okay, fine.
Right. Just do
Um,
it.
yeah, just do it. So I'm glad I did it.
And
I'm
what
going to
is
take a
your master's in?
interesting question.
Okay.
So my master's is actually in emergency management and public safety,
Oh,
which,
wow.
yeah, I believe that our industry really struggles in that wheelhouse.
Mm,
It's a necessity, especially with what we've seen going on with Hurricane Helene and Milton aftermath. Not to mention, trauma and crime scene cleanup, just all the
yeah.
things. Um, my goal, honestly, at the end of the day, one day, I don't know when this will be, but is to really provide our industry experts with their own emergency preparedness plan.
Mm, mm,
We are definitely first responders in our own way, and I think we have to prepare our first responders essentially to be able to serve the community at the best that they can without putting themselves in danger. So
absolutely.
that's my little spiel about that. But yeah,
I love it. I love it. I'm sure we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. Say it again, emergency management and what?
public safety.
Public safety. Wow. To be honest, I had no idea there was a degree in that. I feel like I say that and then I'm like, well, of course there would be. There's people who specialize in that. Like,
You know, so there's a couple of different things, and my master's is in leadership with an emphasis of emergency management
okay.
and public safety. So, there's even I didn't realize this until, I was sitting on stage and I was like, oh, but that kind of makes sense. Like cybersecurity has a master's degree as
Mm,
well.
yeah.
Just like things like that when you sit there and you realize that you're like, okay, I guess that does make sense.
Mm,
So yeah, it's interesting because with this major, you take a lot of management classes.
sure.
So I think that's why it's really leadership essentially, because
Mm,
they're preparing you to actually go out there and manage, plans and work with people in the public.
absolutely. Well, and realistically, when you talk about emergency management and safety implementation, like you have to have developed yourself as a good leader to be able to implement those things well. Otherwise, you're just another person standing on a podium saying, okay, like here's what we have to do. But leadership definitely has to be a huge skill set that you have to acquire to do that well.
Yeah, I would definitely say that you have to be great at communication too.
Hmm.
I think it really taught me so much through the last 12 to 18 months, to be completely honest. My bachelor's is in criminal science.
Oh,
When
wow.
I tell you I stumbled upon this industry, I truly, truly mean it. It, but my passion underlying and background in my family really has tied me to criminal justice emergency management just because of
Mm,
my background with my family. So I really
sure.
feel like it's going to serve its purpose here in this industry
Yeah.
as well. And, you know, it's always nice to offer something that maybe somebody else hasn't, or maybe they just don't want to talk about it because they're not too sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, stumbled upon this industry. Are you willing to kind of share, like, what does that actually look like? How did you actually stumble? Because starting at the IICRC, I mean, I think that's awesome that you did that, but it's very specialized. Like, gosh, I mean, you come right down to kind of like the core of our industry and the standards that are in place when you talk about the IICRC, and that's where you started. So, how?
Yeah, so literally, I was trying to move from Las Vegas or from Harrison, Arkansas, a little tiny town, to Las Vegas. And I was just kind of trying to find like customer service, because I was coming from FedEx at that time. And
Okay.
I really had strong admin skills. My admin skills are, gosh, like 15, 20 years I've had admin skills. And so I definitely was like, okay, customer service. And I applied. And at that time, the CEO then actually called me and
Mm,
he was like, "Hey, I got your application. I know you're moving here. Um, when you get here, let's meet." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, that sounds great." And in your mind, when you're like your move is still a little further out, you're like, "Man, is this really gonna pan out?" And
yeah.
it did. When I got here, which it was a crazy trip here. Like literally everything that could happen happened. We had like crazy weather, literally crazy weather, like pull over on the side of the road, rain, can't see. My brakes started to give me problems. We got
Oh no.
like 30 minutes from our destination and I got a flat tire. Like when I tell you everything happened, everything happened. And when I got a flat tire, I didn't have any service. So it was like a whole mess, but
Oh my
thankfully my mom was in front of me, the car in front of me, and it all worked out. So when I got here, he actually texted me and he said, "Hey, I just want to see if you made it and if we could connect." And I said,
wow.
"Wow, like that's really crazy, right?" And so we ended up connecting. He connected me with his HR manager at the time. And then I think within like 3 days, I was in there for an interview. They had me do like their skill stuff, their typing, and all that. And then I think by that Friday, she was like, "Do you want the job?" And that's all she
Yeah.
wrote. That was my entry to the industry. And just from there, we were a very small team and we were lucky enough to promote from within. And so,
Yeah.
I had always done some type of marketing and stuff or had that side of my brain. But once I worked my way up, I really started to fall in love with marketing and how we talk
Mm,
to our audience.
mm,
You know, we it's personalized. This industry loves to be talked to. And that's one of the things that really taught me about communication. So then when my time there ended, I stayed in marketing, and I went to the healthcare industry, and definitely not for me. Great industry, but just not not for me. It's not a bad industry. It's really good. There's great people there, just like our industry has, but it was just something was missing.
yeah.
So I came back and it was much needed because you just fall deeper in love with it, and the passion just ignites within you. And I always stayed in touch, but I think definitely I'm at a place of peace right now. I feel like I'm at home.
That's amazing. And there's something so powerful to be said when you find that moment and you can, or that place, and you have that moment of, I truly feel like I'm at home in this role in this industry, because it's not cut out for everyone, just like the healthcare industry isn't cut out for everyone. Like you have to have a special skill set and a special passion for every industry. I think in um, American workplaces, well, not even just American workplaces, but realistically, like I, I'm kind of an avid proponent of your job, yes, like it is a means to an end. I understand that. Like we all work so that we can provide for our families, but there is something truly beautiful that comes when you can tie your passion into your job so it doesn't feel like this constant work every day. Some days it feels like work, I get it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but then there are other days where you're like, are you serious? I get to do this. And that's really special.
It really is, and I think that when you find that place, the connections you make with people are on such a deeper
Mhm.
level, right? Like it's not
Absolutely.
just work at that time. There's so many people that I've met in the past 10 years that I am friends with on social media. Like we check in
Yes.
on each other. We celebrate each other's accolade,
Yeah.
accomplishments, and it's so priceless because at the end of the day, life is based on the connections that you make, both
Mm,
inside and outside of work. And, most times you go where you go in life because of your connections. So,
absolutely.
I mean, like, look how I got here. I know the industry. I know Darlene. I know Michael. I know BNP. I mean, I know the industry, and I was fortunate enough to be offered this opportunity to be
Mhm.
editor in chief.
Yeah, absolutely. It is incredible. I mean, truly. And you've said this in kind of a few little tidbits of what you said, because you talked about first, like you kind of fell into this industry and then stayed in it because of your connections and then came back to it because of your connections. And I think realistically, we talked about kind of the magic that happens when you're passionate about your job beyond just like your daily tasks. But there is something to be said about the connections that tie you to your job as well. And what does that look like on a personal basis for you? Being in this industry, how do you build connection? Because I think I remember when I first started in the industry, and in fact, my first ever trade show that I went to was an RAA trade show. I couldn't even tell you what year it was anymore. But I remember watching people and I was like, this is incredible. Like, I am sure my colleagues hadn't seen some of these connections since the last year's conference. And yet it was
Mhm.
like they saw each other and no time had passed. That's how it felt. And I remember thinking to myself, how do I get that? How do I get to know these people beyond just like selling what I do? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
How have you navigated that?
I would definitely just say being yourself. You know, I know that sounds very plain and maybe boring to some people, but you know, we all start somewhere. We don't know it all, especially if you're new to the industry. And I feel like being yourself includes being honest, right?
Yeah.
There was, man, I remember the first time I was ever on a trade show floor. Whew, scariest thing in my life. Um, you know, it was pretty scary. Like my first encounter was somebody yelling at me on the trade show
Mm,
floor, and I was sympathetic at that point and empathetic because I could see the frustration. He wasn't yelling at me,
yeah.
you know, and really from that point on, I was just like, okay, he's human too. He's upset. He just wants somebody to hear him. And I think
Mhm.
that's what really turned on in my brain. Like, there's nothing that you have to do any different that you do in your day to day life. It's okay if you don't have all of the answers, but as long as you're honest about it, you are respected that way. And
Yeah.
I mean, to this day, there's some stuff that I don't know. And my response is, hey, you got me. I honestly don't know, but I can probably find you somebody that just does know the answer. And when
Yes.
you do that, there's an instant connection because they're like, hey, I can count on you.
Yeah.
Even if you're not the one supplying it to me. And I feel like our industry is pretty good for that. Honestly, I would definitely say I've definitely seen our industry grow over the last 10 years. There's
Mhm.
so much more collaboration and referrals and just all of that. And I think
Yeah.
it's coming a long way because of people being themselves, honestly, being their
Mhm.
authentic true self. And that would be my thing. I mean, even on the trade show floor, I asked people like, how'd you get started? I mean, honestly, give me some information about you. And then when you see where they are, it gives you the opportunity to, if you have a sale, sell it, sell it.
Mhm.
But if
Mhm.
not, it's like, hey, I think we can work together, or hey, I think I could connect you with somebody, and it
Yes.
just builds from there at that point. Because at the end of the day, we all have a business to run. But,
Mhm.
if you don't make a sale, it doesn't mean you can't make a friend or a colleague.
Absolutely. Well, and I think we shortchange ourselves, especially in this, in our roles of if we only look at the person in front of us as another potential sale. I think it was maybe like 2 years ago when that really hit me of I can approach my conversations with someone in the sales regard of like, well, I hear your problem. I have a solution for you. Here it is. Or I can approach it from the aspect of you're a human too. And I have a solution to your problem, but I also might not be the best fit for you. And that's 100% okay. I am not everyone's cup of tea, and I'm aware of that. But there's like something really freeing about accepting that about yourself and understanding like I might not be their perfect cup of tea, but you know what? If I can get to know you more than the person with a potential sale in front of me, I could probably connect you with the person that could solve your problem really well if it's not me and my company. And that is like, that's where you build those connections. That's where you build that loyalty. And ultimately, that matters so much more to me, at least. Like, I have always valued, like, do I want to make sales in my role? Well, of course I do. Like, we, we are
it's
trying to
human
grow our
too, right?
companies.
Yeah.
Right. We're trying to grow our companies. But I value my integrity as a person even more than I value my sales, to be able to say, you know what, I hear your problem and I could probably fumble and try to make this work, but if I'm not the right fit for you, here's someone who I think might be. And I don't know. I have always appreciated when someone else has done that to me and been
Mm-hmm.
so honest in their connection, that I want to be able to offer that back to someone else.
I also think too that that's really key, no matter what industry you're in, to be completely honest. At
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, when you know you're not a right fit and you're giving them somebody that is the right fit, you're doing yourself a service as far as a
Mm-hmm.
business owner and just a company as a whole, because then there's no bad blood and you don't have the
Exactly.
opportunity to kind of set yourself up for failure. Because at the end of the day, if you took that and there was some kind of hiccup or maybe a failure, at the end of the day, you only have yourself to blame. And instead of setting yourself up for failure, set yourself up for success and say, hey, I hear you, like you said, and I think so and so is going to be a great fit. Like, I'd love to introduce you. And I think if
Yeah,
you take that extra step and say, hey, I'd love to introduce you, you already have a forever connection right there.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's something, unfortunately, that as business owners, you're either really afraid of or really on board with, because what it requires is for you to say, no, I'm not the right fit for you. Like, you have to be willing to turn down some business. uh, Prior to coming to Virtual Vision, I owned my own business, and I remember being at this moment in my career where it was time to make a decision. Like, I wanted to take the next step and grow, but what was going to push me forward? And ironically, it was the saying no that pushed the best, like that pushed me to the next level of business growth, of recognizing I can't serve everybody. That's not
Mm-hmm.
what I'm meant to do. uh that I have said it in like my last 3 podcast episodes. I think the concept of jack of all trades, master of none. That's literally what you become if you are a yes person. But when you can say no, seems really counterproductive,
Yeah,
and then send that business somewhere else. But that's when, I mean, man, that's so
it
powerful.
changes. I was definitely going to say, I think we're taught in life in some way, shape, or form that we're supposed to be yes men and women to
Mm,
succeed. And I think that is where we're set up for failure as humans, period. And I think it takes you some time to get to that realization that, hey, no is not as bad as people make it seem.
yeah.
No actually can propel you so much further in your career. It
Mm,
can take your business to the next step. It can mean franchising. It can mean, a new business. I mean, it just can mean
yeah.
so many things when you take a second. And it's funny that you mentioned jack of all trades, because I had that role, jack of all trades. A previous team of mine, we all had nicknames, right? And mine happened to be jack of all trades because
Mm,
I just did all the things. And looking back, I'm like, man, I burnt myself out. Like, if I
yeah.
would have just said no to like one thing, I'd probably been a little bit more sane than I was. But it's true. The older you get, the wiser you get. And,
Yeah.
you know, if I could tell myself, 10 years ago, hey, you don't have to do it all, who knows where life could have taken me. But I'm glad I'm in this position now because
Yeah.
I can help people in our industry, whether they're far in their career, they're starting out, and I think it just takes us like this, speaking up about it. No
Yes.
is not a bad thing. There's a proper way to tell somebody no. It's
Mhm.
not, hey, no. But
Right.
there's a proper way to say, I think, I have a good fit for you. Unfortunately, I don't think it's me, but I would love to introduce you,
Yeah.
or even if you're busy, that's hard too, right? To say no when especially when you're like a contractor and you're like,
Mm,
man, I'm going to let this person down because they sought me out. And it's really hard. But then when you hand them off to somebody you trust, it's, like I said, a forever connection. And I know
mhm.
plenty of people in this industry who actually work that way. They get a lot of business that way. they may be quote unquote competitors, but they will
Yeah.
give each other business because they can rely on each other. And that right there, proof is in the pudding there. They're
Mhm.
successful. Yes, you are competition, but at the end of the day, this industry is so robust. There are
Yeah.
so many people in this world. There is enough business to go around.
100%. 100%. The good side of saying no and building connections within our industry and kind of just the magic that can happen when you do that. Is there anything else that you want to add to those points, Kayla, before we kind of dive into our next topic?
Honestly, I would just say that, success in this industry is about being yourself,
Mm,
saying, knowing when to say no and saying it, and realizing that connections go much deeper than within your job, right? And I think that is part of your key to success in this industry.
absolutely. I love that. Connections go much deeper than your job. It's so true. So true. Earlier, when you introduced yourself and talked a little bit about the industry, you said something about the importance of how we speak to our audience. And then you said our industry likes to be talked to. Can you dive into that a little bit more for me? What did you mean when you said that?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest thing is at the end of the day, we're all consumers. And
Mm,
when you're talking to someone, whether it's personalization in the subject line, personalization in your greeting, and saying things like you, your business, including them in the statement of we, how can we do this together? It builds that team mentality regardless of where you are. And to be completely honest, life is so short. If you
mm,
don't feel appreciated or talked to, chances are you're going to turn the other way. And
mm,
this industry cannot be successful without all of us being on the same team, to be completely honest.
mhm,
Um, so, a little bit about that is I absorbed what was being sent to me, right? In email, commercials,
mhm.
um, every day. And you're just like, I'm just general, I'm just a blanket approach. And
Sure.
for our professionals, whether you're cleaning, restoration, inspection, indoor air, all of the things,
Mhm.
scientists in our industry, you make this industry go round. And so
Yeah.
appreciation and personalization goes so much further. And
Mhm.
the reason why is because we have such a thankless job at the end of the day. And if we don't set the tone as industry professionals with the personalization, we're selling ourselves short, to be completely honest.
Yeah, you're
And,
so right.
I think everybody loves to get kudos and recognition, but sometimes that doesn't come for quite some time.
Mhm.
And when
If
you
at all.
True, if at all. And when you just take that little bit of time and tweak your messaging to say, you know, hey, Amanda, we wanted to thank you for stopping by our booth. It was a pleasure
Mhm.
seeing you. Opposed
Mhm.
to, hey, friend, we saw you
Sure.
at X show. Can't wait to
Yeah.
see you buy our stuff. It's not as
Yeah.
fluffy and warm and inviting. And the other thing is when you talk to people, and you're personalizing, you're actually telling them how they benefit from your service at the same
Mhm.
time. But
Mm.
it's people don't really think of it that way. They're not thinking that they're being marketed to. Only marketers really think that way, honestly. um,
Absolutely.
so when you're taking the time to talk to them and just really support what your words say in the copy, and then
Mm.
when they see you in person and you're still talking to them that same way, it makes such a difference. I mean,
Mm.
honestly, when you love something like this industry and the work that you do, it crosses over everything you do from copy to stuff like this, sitting and talking to somebody.
Yeah.
Now I know that I have a lifelong friend here, right? We've
Yeah.
talked in email and
Yeah.
everything. And I know from this point moving forward, whether we work together on stuff or we're just like, hey, how's it going? Or whatever, we have that bond now. And I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
that's how you get to that point is the personalization, treating people like they're people. I think that's
Mhm.
the biggest thing is Yes, we like to make sales. Yes, we want to grow our business. But most importantly, it all comes to connections. I sound probably like a broken record, but it's really it
No,
that's what it comes down to.
no, and I love that you're saying that though. The timing is actually really cool because it's probably been just about a year since my first podcast episode period. And the whole first episode was discussing from our industry the standpoint of approaching the humanity of our customer and customer service, specifically as it related to like answering a phone call of a damage that comes through. Because I think so often, especially in our industry, not not that we forget, but like we're kind of desensitized to the disasters that we're hearing about from people. And in some ways, like you have to be, because there are some really challenging things that we see and deal with in our industry, whether it's trauma crime scene, whether it's hurricanes. I mean, like there are some hard things that we get to hear. And eventually, in order to handle it, like your body builds up that response. However, what if it's the customer that what if it's their first time? We still have to recognize that as a human, they are still experiencing the emotion with that. And I say that because the same goes for everyone else in this industry. They are experiencing something in the appreciation and personality and the communication that you bring out to them. And while to us, it might feel like the 100th time I've said that statement to someone about what virtual vision does or could do for them, to them, it's the first time. And I can approach it like it's the 100th time I've said it, or if I can approach it like it's the first time I've said it, because it is for that person, probably.
Yeah, and I was also going to say like the importance that this emotional intelligence plays, right?
Mm,
You are seeing somebody and helping somebody probably on one of their worst days ever, if not the worst day for them. And when you are a professional and you've been in this industry for a long time, you're their voice of reason and calm.
mm,
So even if it is your 100th time saying it, but it's their first time hearing it, the calmness in your voice, the tone of your
yes.
voice, the way you speak to them, one, not only sets up your job for success, but it also provides them with the peace of mind that, hey, I don't need to stress out about this. They know what they're doing, they're the professionals.
Mhm.
And I think this is full service for customer service too, because most restoration companies or a lot of restoration companies offer, cleaning services and maintenance services in the quote unquote off season, right? And so you're actually setting yourself up to build a lifelong customer. And
Absolutely.
you know, then you're going to be on first name basis, right? Or maybe it's last name. Maybe it's, hey, Miss Jones, it's your 6 month mark. Did you need us to come and clean your carpets? You know, that right there, knowing that person's name, they don't know if you're reading it off of something or if you just
Right.
straight up know them, right? And I
Right.
think it makes such a huge difference. And if we think about it that way on our professional to professional level, from professional to consumer level, just makes the world a difference, honestly.
100%. 100%. And you're absolutely right. Emotional intelligence plays a huge part into it. You have to be aware of the inflections that you're putting in your voice and how that can come across to someone else. You know, it's it's important, and I've said this often, but it's important to recognize like you want to find a place where you can work, where you can truly be your authentic self. Sometimes, though, that does kind of mean masking. Like if you've had a bad day, you have to be emotionally aware enough to go, ooh, I have to like, I have to control myself and not ruin someone else's day just because I might be having a bad day. And I think that that goes all just into this topic of how we're talking to our audience, whether that's, like you said, professional to professional or professional to consumer. It all comes back to that idea of leadership and emotional intelligence and making the connection with that person.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, you are going to have bad days, and I think open and honest about that too, especially with the people closest to you, whether it's your boss, your coworker, we're human. We feel things, right? And so it's okay to have a bad day. I think that
Yeah.
oftentimes, not just us in this industry, but all industries, you feel like you can't really have a bad day or just say, like, hey, I'm tired. Like, I am spent. I need like a day. And
Yeah.
it is hard. It is so hard. But at the end of the day, if you take that second to
Hmm.
connect and say, hey, today is not a good day. I'm
Yep.
just really struggling, you know, it allows people to understand, like, okay, maybe she's not on her A game, maybe he's not on his A game, but they are on their A game 99% of the time. So it's
Right.
okay for that 1, 2, even up to 5%. Honestly, I really think it's
Absolutely.
okay. You know, countless of us travel. That is exhausting,
Hmm.
and if you don't give yourself the time to recover from that, you can't perform at your best. One, you're probably really tired, right?
Right.
And are you really useful? And that's the one thing that it just takes time to grow into that. Honestly, I can't tell you how many times I'd be up working late and then I'd realize, like, am I really accomplishing anything at this point? Like, because I'm so tired, you know?
Right.
And then you take that time where you're like, okay, I'll come back tomorrow. And then when you come back tomorrow, one, you come with fresh eyes and sometimes you catch mistakes or a
Hmm.
lack of things. And it just teaches you we're human at the end of the day. Like, it's okay.
Absolutely.
It's okay to
We
have a
do
bad
have
day.
limitations. That's a part of who we are. Well, and
Yeah.
that we don't always need to offer an explanation to that either. Like I'm a real person. I don't need to explain to someone that, hey, this is the day of the week that like my brain is just tired. I don't think as well. As a really practical example, Thursdays are probably my least favorite day of the whole week. Not Monday, not Wednesday, Thursdays. Thursdays are like my least favorite day. And part of that is just because our family, like after work, has so many things Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that by the time I get to Thursday, I'm like, I could stare at a wall all day and that might be the most productive I'm going to feel. And so like I say this as we're filming on a Thursday, but
Yeah.
generally I tell my assistant who's in charge of my calendar, don't book me very many things on Thursday. Like it's a good task catch up day for me, but
Hmm.
I just, I'm not very helpful. I tend to be short tempered or impatient or like I can't do my best work.
Yeah.
And I struggled with setting that boundary for a while because I felt like I owed an explanation to why Thursdays stunk for me.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, no, I'm a human. There are some
Yeah.
days where I'm just not, I can't operate at 100% capacity all the time. Otherwise, it's going to lack somewhere else in my life too.
Yeah.
And so, also though, sometimes I think that carries into, which is a whole other topic, but like being aware of your own boundaries, and sometimes that means making hard decisions of things that have to change.
Yeah.
There's an activity that I was a part of on Wednesday nights that I loved but totally wore me out for Thursdays. Well, 2 weeks ago I decided, as much as I love this, I can't feasibly do this. It's not beneficial for my family and it does not help me on Thursdays, so I have to give it up.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's part of being a good leader too, is understanding your limits and having to say no in your personal life to the things that will affect your leadership ability in other places. Again, whole other topic. I
Yeah.
could like get on a soapbox about that one.
I also think this plays into burnout and mental health, right? So it's
Absolutely.
you control that, right? And so I think, like you said, this is a whole, you could probably do a whole series on this, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, at the end of the day, you have to know your limits because nobody else around you is going to know them, especially if you're a really
Mm-hmm.
high performer. Um,
Yes.
when people know that you're a high performer, that's all they see, right? They only see you for a high performer. They see you as a person, but
Mm-hmm.
to them, you're invincible, right? Like you can just do
Absolutely.
everything. And if we don't set that reality and expectation ourselves, how can we blame others for not doing it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and again, only you know your limitations, like you said. So no one else is gonna, unless you have like a really good friend who's able to like know you well enough to go, you need to chill,
Yeah.
no one else is going to come to you and say, hey, you're performing so well and you've been doing that for a long time. I'm guessing you're probably near burnout, so you should probably shut down. No one's going to say that to you. They're going to be like, cool, can you add these few more things to your plate?
Right. And then if they do notice it, you're like, you're 5 years too late. Like, I've been
Right?
burnt out for like 5 years.
Way past that point.
Well, and I think too, like, when you do have a team, they're able to absorb that, right? And
Mhm.
so a lot of people don't even ever see that. So, I think it's funny that you say that, unless there's somebody really close to you, like, our husbands, right? If they
Mhm.
worked on our team, they would be like, don't answer your phone, focus on what you're doing, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, that's what your voice of reason is yourself. But also, just taking a second, even if you don't know you're at your limit yet, it can't get done if you're distracted, if you're like anxious, if you're upset, if you're, so I just think that when it's recognized and there's not this like negative concept around,
Mhm.
burnout or like being
Yeah.
upset, then it just makes everything go so much better. I mean, I am in an environment for work, with our team that I feel I can speak up. And I've only been here for like, you know, for like not even 2 months. But, I think when you do that, you set not only yourself, but your team up for
Absolutely.
success. So, I think we've voiced a lot here.
Yeah.
We've grown into this, right? Like
Mhm.
we grew into it. We learned from our own, not mistakes. I would say lessons. I don't like to say mistakes because they are
Mhm.
lessons. You know, um, you get where you're going by learning the lessons, along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, I feel like we could talk for hours more and not really even scratch the surface of some of these topics. Like we've literally just like dipped our toes into a few really good ones and had to move on. Caleb, before we kind of wrap up our time, I do want to ask, and you've shared so many good, just like words of wisdom here today already. For someone who is new in this industry, so you've been in the industry now for 10 years, think back to 10 years ago, what advice would you give yourself or someone else now being where you are in this industry to someone who's maybe just coming in or is going, is this the right place for me? What would you tell them?
I would definitely tell them, and even myself, ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Even if you're in a room with some like people that know everything,
Mhm.
if you don't take the time to ask questions or even question people's logic, to be completely honest,
Yeah.
you're not going to set yourself up for success.
Mhm.
You know, to be successful, not just in our industry, but any industry, you have to come in being very optimistic and understanding that you don't know everything. Um,
Mm.
10 years in, I'm still learning, right? I can confidently say that. I am not ashamed to say that. I am not
Mhm.
down on myself to say that because there is so much that this industry has to offer. You have to kind of just own it, right? Like,
Yeah.
definitely ask questions, observe. That's another thing that I think people don't really do is observe. Just sit there and just take it all in, take
Yeah.
notes. I have notebooks from 10 years ago, probably not a proud thing to say, but I do. I do. I have one right here. Well, this is
I
my new one,
love
but
it.
just that's how you succeede. Believe it
Mhm.
or not, you actually do look back on your notes, right? Like you may have
Yes.
met somebody in a call, right? And you wrote their name down and you're like, man, I totally remember talking to somebody. You could actually go back in your notes. I have business cards. Like
Mhm.
keep those things as bad as it sounds, but that's how you get to where you're going at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Kayla, I'm so grateful for your willingness to spend time with me today and dive into things a little bit more with me. If any of our listeners want to reach out, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you or to learn a little bit more about what you do?
So if you want to learn about what I do, you can go to rnrmagonline.com and you can see all of our fun things, articles, podcasts, events, you name it. If you'd like to contact me directly, you can email me McGowan K at bnpmedia.com, or look me up on social, Kayla McGowan on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all the things. And honestly, my door is always open. It doesn't have to be work related. If you have questions, always feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, I'm super grateful for our time here today, Kayla. For our listeners, thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Building and Branding Podcast. We can't wait to see you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of the Building and Branding Podcast. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this conversation and got some valuable insights to take with you. While you're at it, if you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss another episode. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. And if you want to learn more about the show or suggest a guest for a future episode, you can head to buildandbrandpodcast.com. That's buildandbrandpodcast.com. Until next time, keep building, keep branding, and I'll catch you soon.